Okay, I think we're back. We were experiencing some technical difficulties while connecting to Sydelle. So we're going to try it again, but before we do so, I'm going to tell a little bit about where I am and who I am. My name is Ilvinio Kikcin. I'm a Dutch photojournalist, and currently I'm standing in the show Through the Lens of in the Africa Museum near Nijmegen, the Netherlands. It's a beautiful show which consists of the work of 17 photographers from different African countries. And all the works that are selected here are part of the African photojournalism database. And I really hope you can see this show. It's a beautiful collaboration between the Africa Museum and the World Press Photo. And secretly, well, not very secretly, I am hoping that some of the COVID rules will be lifted soon, so that people can come and see this show, because it will run till the 23rd of May. And if you won't be able to come and see the show in real life, please check out the Africa Museum Instagram page and their website to read more about the works. So currently I'm standing in front of the work of Sydelle Willow Smith, a beautiful and very kind friend of mine as well, from South Africa. She's a great photographer. And this work is part of the series Untitled. I will try to show the work while we are trying to connect to Sydelle again. And I hope it really works this time. Let me see. So while we're waiting, and I really hope it's going to happen, because it would be lovely if she can really tell about this work herself. So I invited her. We just did a test and it worked. I saw Sydelle, and now it says waiting for Sydelle. Oh, but a lot of more people were tuning in than we had before. So this is a good move. We all did it on purpose. There we go. So Sydelle, what I can tell about the story while we're waiting is that Sydelle grew up during apartheid times in South Africa, during the racial segregation time. And yeah, she photographed for several years and worked on this series for quite a bit. I saw the work for the first time when I was in New York, exhibiting my own work. And Sydelle was there as well, showing her work. And I think she is requesting to join. There we go. There she is. Sydelle.
Hello.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. How are you?
Yay. Good.
Happy it works this time.
Yeah, sorry about the technical difficulties.
Don't worry. I'm not. Let me change this a bit. There we go. Because I can't see. There we go. Okay.
Great.
There, I'm going to show you your show. Have you seen it already? Here
I've only seen photographs, not video. So it's
really beautiful.
To see it. Thank you.
There, I'm standing in front of it, sorry. So before we start, tell me, what did you do today?
Today I was helping my team at Sunshine Cinema, the solar powered cinema network that I run with my husband. I was helping them get ready. They are all going to Joburg to run a training for 20 new young people to join our program and run cinemas for us next week.
Oh, wow.
So we're busy packing all the equipment and making sure everything's ready for that. So that's what I was busy with today.
And are you also going to Joburg?
Unfortunately, I am... Well, not unfortunately, but I am 35 weeks pregnant, so I'm not allowed to fly on an airplane anymore.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So you're staying behind.
I am staying behind.
And well, could you, because while we were connecting, I tried to explain in one sentence what the series is about, but I think a better way of asking is maybe to ask your favorite image of this series, and then through this image, you can maybe explain what the series is about.
So my favorite image...
And I'll try to move to the favorite image.
My favorite image is an image of a bunch of people in a swimming pool.
Okay,
yes.
Here it is. Let me adjust it a bit. And I'm going to move it a bit closer so people can see.
Yeah.
There.
So this image was taken on the border between South Africa and Botswana in the Transfrontier Kalahari National Park at a camping site on a very, very, very hot day in November. And I liked the fact that everyone was still wearing their clothes because they were trying not to get sunburnt while enjoying the midday break from their adventures. But it also spoke to an underlying reason for wanting to create the project, which was really to look at what does it mean to be a white person from South Africa? What history lines, what landscapes have your families and ancestors traveled for you to come to be a South African? What kind of pioneering myths have you been told about how your family came to be in this place? What have been the repercussions of you coming to a place like South Africa with its violent history of colonialism? So I like the kind of awkward uncomfortability of how everyone looks almost like hippos in a watering hole. That's what it
You didn't tell them that,
of.
did you?
I did not tell them that. I also got in the pool myself, so I was
Good.
also a hippo, getting away from the very hot sun. But yes, I think it speaks to an underlying rationale of why I wanted to do the project in the first place, which was to explore belonging
And
in
is this
relation to this history.
So you grew up in kind of the end years of apartheid, I'm guessing, or you were born afterwards?
I was born in 1987, so I started primary school the year that apartheid officially became the new South Africa. So the year that Mandela became president in 1994 was the year that I started school, which I think was very formative for me because we were taught, you know, it's your first year of school, you have a school uniform, you have all of these new things, but you also have a new flag and you have a new anthem and you have a new country that is growing up with you. So I think that was very formative for me about this, looking at this idea that you're a child of the rainbow nation, but what does that actually mean, and what rainbow, and who's in the rainbow, and who's excluded from the rainbow, have been questions that have been asked more and more in post-apartheid South Africa. So that's also what this project aimed to speak to.
And what was it like for you as a South African, or maybe as a white South African, to work on this story? And also, if people want to ask any questions, I forgot to mention this, please jump in and ask Sydelle anything you want to ask her. So just type a question in the comments and we'll make sure to go through them. Yeah.
So I think it was a project that I needed to do because I come from quite a traditional documentary way of photographing. I studied at the Market Photo Workshop. I grew up, you know, reading books about the Bang Bang Club and about the drum photographers and this huge legacy of struggle photography in South Africa that always put the photographer as quite a hero, capturing moments of difficulty, being a witness to history. But most of the stories I was interested in documenting were stories about people of color. They were stories about xenophobia and about migration in an African context and about domestic workers. And I hadn't ever really turned the lens on the white world of privilege that I come from. And more with studying things like anthropology, as well as being a young person during the Fees Must Fall and Roads Must Fall movements in South Africa, that really
Can you explain the fees must fall and roads must fall? I know what it is because I worked in South Africa a lot, but just for the viewers to give a bit of background.
So very briefly, the one of the main underlying calls of these movements is for the decolonization of education, the decolonization of previously white-dominated spaces such as universities, not spaces of knowledge. This idea that Western knowledge and imperialism is the go-to in terms of progress or in terms of what constitutes good knowledge has been really tried to be deconstructed by these movements. It's also a call for education to be accessible, because it's hugely inaccessible in a country like South Africa. So that philosophy, that influence has definitely played into more and more how younger photographers and storytellers think about their positionality and what stories they should be focusing on. And I feel as a white South African that I should be speaking to other white South Africans about our continued positions of privilege in a country where we are a minority, but yet we do statistically own the majority of wealth still, you know, so many years after colonialism and apartheid has come to an end. So it's really a project aimed at questioning that.
And is the project finished? Is it ever finished? Or because you're in the middle of all of this, you're living in it, so I guess, yeah, knowing you, it might never be finished, but I don't know.
I don't know. I think it's a project that I will always come back to in different chapters. So at the moment, I haven't been photographing new work for it for the last couple of months. I've exhibited the work publicly because I wanted to spark engagement about the work. And I have been part of a fellowship between South Africa and America through the Atlantic Philanthropies Institute over the last 18 months. So what I'm actually looking at now is how can I do a chapter of this work in a place like America? What does it mean to question these ideas around this myth of pioneering spirit and these myths around belonging and forefathers and all of these kinds of stories we are told? What does it mean to look at that through a different lens in a place like America or a place like Australia? So in the long term, I would like to do a book about the project, and I would like to do some kinds of learner teacher guides that can be used in a school curriculum where issues of race are unpacked.
That is super important.
Especially that's, you know, it's long-term ambitions. So yeah, it's definitely not something that's going away for me. I feel like it's something I'll keep coming back to, and it'll look different in different chapters, but it's something I'm going to work on probably forever. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I'm happy to hear, actually. I see there's a question coming in. I think it's a question from Nora. Nora. And the question is, what triggers you to take a picture? Because a lot of the moment die, the pictures. I see. I think because of the images look so spontaneous, she's wondering what moment do you take a picture? What triggers you to take a certain picture of a spontaneous moment? When do you take your camera out and when do you leave it hanging on your shoulder?
I think that it's subjective as a. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
As a storyteller like yourself, you know, you have certain frames and compositions that speak to you. I think that it takes many years of learning what your language is, what your visual language is. That's something that I'm still learning. I take many pictures in the moment. I don't just take one. And out of 10 pictures, maybe one would have gotten the composition right, you know, where there's not an awkward hand coming out the side of the frame, or somebody's picking their nose, or someone's eating food in a weird way that ruins your composition. So in those moments, I just try and blend in as much as possible and look for the frames and look for the light that attracts me.
And how did you, because let's talk about you as a person as well, not just about the series, but how do you kind of come to where you are now as a photographer? And why did you want to become a photographer, or was your dream a whole different kind of dream? Did you want to become something totally different when you were younger?
I think when I was about 9, I wanted to be a nuclear scientist because I thought that the periodic table of elements was really cool.
No way.
The way everything was organized.
Okay.
But
amazing.
then I was not very good at science at all.
Okay.
But my father was a professional darkroom printer for a commercial lab. So he would spend his days printing color and processing film. And I always found that really fascinating. and he built me a dark room when I was about 13 or 14 that I used to spend a lot of time in with my boyfriend listening to punk music and
Sweet.
you know, not being so
Oh,
well
cool.
behaved. So I think that photography was something
Happy you're
photography
sharing
was
this.
something that was always there, and we had a lot of photo books in our house, so I'd spend a lot of time looking at photographs. I loved looking at family photo albums, especially I'm quite a lot younger than my brother and sister, so I always found it so fascinating to look at photographs of them 5 or 6 years before when I wasn't around, because those photos gave me an insight into my family world, the family world that I joined later on. So I think I just always had a deep connection and attraction to the image itself. And then I felt quite frustrated with photography and didn't feel like it was enough, and felt like photographers were quite egotistical, and everyone
That's
was
so
like
true.
war photographer images of these heroes, and I kind of felt like it was quite sort of vulturous. And I had grown up in the time when Kevin Carter had committed suicide, and coincidentally went to school with his daughter, and had very young memories of like this family that was quite torn apart by a horrific incident that had happened, but I didn't understand it. I was only 7 or 8 years old. And I think I always had this strange suspicion about photography and its purpose. And that led me to study anthropology. I have an aunt and an uncle who were both anthropologists, and I was always fascinated by the field. And anthropology made me question photography in a healthy way, I think, in terms of the power dynamics that come with photography. Yeah.
Instead of the egotistic one. Oh, I see there's a question coming in from Wouter, and he says, how would you define your style? Am I right? Yeah, your visual language. That's a difficult question, probably, or not?
It's a difficult question. I don't know how I would define it. I would say that I could say that there are certain artists that I really admire in terms of their composition and the ways that they capture light. Edward Hopper as a painter, definitely for me, is somebody that always stands out. Someone like Alex Soth as a storyteller and as a photographer, and the ways that he puts narratives together is another one. And then Martin Parr has always been somebody that I've had a lot of fun looking at his images, and how much fun he has with his camera.
So much humor in those images.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable, right? Yeah, beautiful. So, but your style, I would say, is documentary. Would you say documentary photojournalism? Well, I don't know.
I think more documentary than photojournalism. I don't really work in the photojournalism space. I focus more on long-term projects. I've never worked for a Wire, or I've done a few editorial assignments for news platforms, but I wouldn't really say I was a news-focused photographer.
But are your subjects usually contemporary issues? So kind of connected to global discussions in a way, like bigger projects?
Yeah, connected to contemporary issues, but I'm also really interested in how history affects present day people's understandings of themselves and their place in the world. How does history and the ghosts of history play out in today's lived experience for people?
And how, if you talk about today's day and age, how would you say the current pandemic has kind of changed your way of working, and what is it like now in South Africa?
So at the moment, I haven't been photographing that much, I must be honest, for the last couple of months, because I've been focusing on the non-profit company that I run, in terms of getting it to a place where I don't need to be involved in the day-to-day as much. And it's getting there. I'm going on maternity leave in a couple of weeks, so that will also give me some time and distance from it, which is good.
That's nice. Yeah, that's good.
But I wouldn't say that I have been actively photographing during the pandemic because I've been pregnant during the pandemic. I've been quite nervous about going outside into the world and, you know, potentially contracting COVID. So I've had
Yeah, of
quite
course.
a, you know, I've had quite a specific experience of the pandemic. But in South Africa, broadly speaking, it has had a huge impact on employment opportunities for people. There's a massive amount of unemployment that wasn't there before. It's increased exponentially. There's huge issues around education because a lot of people don't have access to online learning and everything is online. So that's going to have major repercussions in the years to come. So it's it's not looking good
And
on many fronts.
is there a current lockdown as well, or a curfew of some sort, or has that been lifted already?
We had a very strict lockdown at the start in March last year where essentially everything closed. Fluctuated
You're breaking up a little
between
bit. Oh, there you are.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you. You said it
It's
was quite a strict lockdown in March last year.
yeah, very strict lockdown in March last year where everything was closed, no.
You're breaking up a little bit. I think I'm not sure if I'm the only one where she's breaking up now, if I can't see her or other people. And I see there's a question coming in, which as soon as she comes back, I'm gonna read to her. But I see a little spinning circle. Oh, and now she's gone. Oh no, we did it again. Okay, wait, let me re-invite her. I think we did quite well for a bit there with the connection. Let's retry there. I invited her again.
Hello.
Yes, Sydelle, I lost you for a little bit. I don't know.
They didn't like me talking about lockdown.
Exactly. Let's not talk about it anymore. Okay, actually a question came in. Shall I read it to you?
Sure.
It's a long one, so I'm gonna
Oh,
let me see. As a white South African, correct me if I'm wrong, it says, what are the cultural, moral, ethical dilemmas confronting your work? And
wow.
do you always get exactly what you want to say in your photographs?
Good question.
That is a good question.
So, what are the cultural, moral dilemmas facing my work? Was the first part? Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, I am a white South African of Jewish descent. My forefathers came to the country fleeing the pogroms of Lithuania at the end of the 19th century. So they've been in the country for over 100 years from Lithuania originally. My grandmother was born in South Africa. My grandfather was born in then Rhodesia in Zimbabwe. My father was adopted, so I don't have as much of an understanding of his lineage. The cultural and moral dilemmas in doing the work is that by questioning whiteness and questioning white privilege and creating visual work about it, I also, as a catch-22, make space for it. I put it out into the world, and there is so much about white culture in the world already that has dominated magazines and films and all kinds of cultural mediums for, you know, since they've existed in the modern sense in the last 100 years, 200 years. So there's a catch-22 in creating that work, and I think that it's been something that I've continuously grappled with about doing this kind of work, interviewing people who have racist views. What does it mean to put those racist views out into the world? Is it better to not have them in the world, but they exist still, and those people still share those views outside of this project? Or is it better to create a space where you are sharing them and having people engage with them and question them and see the realities of how different people think and feel? I feel like it's the latter. There's a very careful navigation of that. And I don't think any project can capture all of that because it's such a complex issue. You know, my project is having a conversation with your work in the Born Free series, it's also having a conversation with work that other photographers have done before me, like David Goldblatt or Mikhail Sabatsky or Peter Hugo, or many other photographers in South Africa. So there's always going to be gaps in what you're trying to capture. So I don't think I always capture what I'm aiming to capture.
And maybe sometimes the work is also, you try to capture a certain image or a certain story, and maybe someone else interprets it totally differently. It kind of depends who looks at it. Exactly. Also, especially online, you've probably noticed that as well. The online community.
Especially online, and also when you try and do public exhibitions of the work, because people can walk past the work and only look at one board and not necessarily look at it as a full body of work and read the text behind it. You know, they just look at one image and they take a photo of it and they post that on social media and get angry about it, which is
exactly. Yeah, that happens. I know.
You can't control that.
I'm gonna see. We almost have to round up. I would love to listen to you all evening, but I'm gonna check if there are any other questions. It's quite difficult to talk and read at the same time, but I have a lovely
You're
team
doing
here.
a great job.
Thank you. You too. I'm so happy to see you as well. But no, I don't think there are any further questions. But if people do have any other questions, just leave them later on when the video is shared, and maybe Sydelle would like to have a look at it later on and type some answers. Is there anything that I missed that I forgot that you want to say or want to share? There's a book coming someday.
I guess I have a question more for, as someone from the Netherlands, are these kinds of conversations about colonial history and the heritage of the Netherlands, are these conversations that are had openly? Are they taught in schools in the country? Is colonialism addressed? In the Netherlands. Because obviously our country has such a strong connection and history to the Netherlands.
I really think the conversation here is very slow, and it could be a lot more. I actually feel South Africa is way ahead of it, but I also believe that is because the racial differences maybe are more, it's more in the daily life, more visual than here, but it's also growing here. And I really, really wish, and I think it is happening, that this conversation is starting to happen as well here in schools, and because of the Black Lives Matter movement, of course. So I do think it is happening, but I think South Africa is a little bit ahead here.
Yeah.
As for other things as well. But that's because I'm a big South Africa lover. But I think it's slowly starting here as well.
Yeah. It's important.
Well, thank you. It is very important. Thanks, Sydelle, for your lovely work here. And
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you were able to make the time, and hope to see you soon in South Africa.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for watching, everybody. And next week we will be back with the work of, I have to read it, I forgot, Mahmoud Khattab. He's a photographer from Egypt, and I'm really looking forward to talking with him as well. His work is actually hanging right in front of me now, so you guys are kind of facing each other, and I'm really hoping that next week every one of you wants to join again. Thanks so much. Thank you, Sydelle. Have a good evening.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.